After 30 podcast. I'm recording. I think I'm recording. I hope I'm recording. Okay, we just started recording. Well, let's take it from the top. What's up, Not Nation and lovers of the Not After 30 podcast? You're in for a good one. A newbie to the show, the host of the Not Another podcast, Billy Reddy. What's up, baby?
Yes. How are we? We good?
I think so. You don't hear French accent. Why don't you tell the good people of the Nana Nation whereabouts in the world you are?
So I'm from across the pond over in London, England.
All right. And Billy and I connected over Instagram, which I think most people do. Not for a hookup, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, we'll see.
We'll see.
We'll see. But yeah, just I guess, I don't know, just through the podcast algorithm, I guess, through Instagram, we kind of connected. And I'm always a fan of podcasts being friends with podcasts because together we kind of make it happen. And hopefully people who listen to this podcast will like you and then like your podcast. That's a goal.
Hopefully, fingers crossed. I mean,
yeah,
get an hour in and people go, oh, let's stop listening to him. Let's get rid of him.
That's always my biggest fear, my dude. How old are you? I'm sorry, I think I lost you. Let me ask you again.
Oh, there you
go. The wonders of technology. How old are you?
I'm 24, which feels weird to say, but yeah 24.
Yeah, I gotta say, I've been listening to your podcast now for about 2 weeks, and I'm probably about 5 to 6 episodes through your feed, and you do not sound or reflect what I believe a 24-year-old is. And the Not After 30 podcast, our whole thing is about reminiscing about your 20s while being in your 30s or surviving your 30s. And so to have like a under 30 on the show, we haven't done it in a long time. Welcome, and I'm glad that you're doing it. So thank you, and your best years are in front of you, my dude.
There you go. I'm honored. Hopefully we can hold a good account for us under 30s.
I hope so. I mean, there's a lot of shit I talk about, I guess, your generation. Would you still be considered a millennial?
Yeah, I think I'm just I'll, if not, I'm definitely more millennial than I'll stay away from Gen Z. But
yeah, fair enough. Gen Z is pretty fucked. But myself, I'm 38, so I got a couple years on you, a lot more years. The way we always start this podcast, I forgot. Do you have a bevy in front of you?
I do.
Excellent. As do I. I have a White Claw because I'm doing keto. What do you got over there?
I've got a Cobra, which is like an Indian beer. But it's very awesome.
Cheers, my man.
Salute.
Just something when it gets into your mouth, you just the spirits get lifted, and we just start moving.
I needed that.
Yeah. So, why did you start a podcast? Why did you start another podcast?
So basically, I was midway through the first national lockdown here in the UK, and I'd started really, really well, and I was like doing all the exercise and staying motivated and stuff while I was not working, and then I just hit a bit of a rut, and I hit a bit of a wall, and I was a bit down and a bit getting overwhelmed with everything. And it's something that I've always listened to podcasts over the last like 5-6 years, really keen on them. So I was thinking, it's got to be a way to channel all of this unused energy and all of that. So I thought, let's give this podcasting a go. And I remember the first episode I recorded about 4 times, deleted it, and then put out the 5th one. Just went, here you go, let's just put it out, and then just went from there. Really, didn't think I'd get this far. I thought I'd have, after going back to work, I thought I would have just gone, too busy to do it now, but I've grown a bit of a love for it.
All right. Well, I mean, that's what happens. I feel the same love. Myself, I actually didn't start this podcast. My brother's step brother-in-law, he started it, and he just put it on social media. Hey, does anyone want to do this with me? And I jumped on. Then he gave up, and he kind of handed it over. He's like, if you want to do this, I mean, we got 6 listeners. If you want, you can kind of make that work. And I'm happy to say, like, fast forward 5 years later, still going. And yeah, I think it's kind of amazing. Like, I know that you had mentioned on your show that Rogan was a big inspiration for you. When did you jump onto the Rogan train?
Cool. I think I had more seriously over the last couple of years. I think before that I was a bit. I'd see, oh, he's been with this person. He's been chatting to someone I knew, and I was like, oh, go on, I'll listen to some clips I see on YouTube. But I think more so over the last probably year or two, I've got quite keen on listening more frequently.
Yeah. All right. And what do you do professionally?
So I am a football coach or a soccer coach. So I do that with a local professional club to me. So I've been with them for about 5 years now.
Awesome.
So I mainly work with kids. So my job at the minute, I work with kids between like elementary school kids, so from 5 years old to 11 years old, and I work with them more so as a teacher now than a coach, and I also help teach teachers how to deliver good PE, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, that totally makes sense. I don't know if we have that equivalent here in Canada, but I mean, I have to imagine. I mean, our biggest export is hockey players, but I have to imagine that we have something similar. But that's so cool. I mean, such a unique job too. Do you in school? I imagine for that.
Yeah, so my kind of background with it, my dad played professionally, so it's been in my family throughout my whole life. And then coming out of school, I was like, I don't really know what I want to do, and I was a bit like, I don't really want to do anything else but play football. But I was never good enough, so I got into coaching, and then since then I've just I picked up 2-3 part-time jobs, doing what I can, and then managed to fall into it full time, and then not look back.
That's awesome. That's actually kind of incredible. The fact that you're the son of a pro player. How is that growing up? Is that tough growing up?
I tell you what, it was fine for me. I don't think it was just normal, if that makes sense. I think I was I was very, very young when he was at the height of his, I guess,
Career?
notoriety of, yeah.
Yeah.
And when he was on the back end and he was playing a bit lower down, I'd always go. I'd be going every week, like be left to sit in the stadium while he goes and plays and picks me up at the end of the game. And then but even like through school and stuff it was just, what does your dad do? Yeah, he plays football. And it just seemed normal, if that makes sense. Where now it's probably now completely different beast. It's now, if you like, plays football, it's now he's like known everywhere. But he almost plays just before everything blew up.
Yeah. Fair enough. So his playing career was 90s, I would imagine, or 80s.
Yeah. So he played right at the beginning of what the Premier League is now. So when it changed from Division 1 to the Premier League. So he played in the Premier League at that time throughout the 90s, and then retired in the early 2000s.
And who did he play for?
So he played for a club called Queen's Park Rangers. So their team out of West London, and he played internationally for the Welsh national team as well, which is pretty cool.
Okay, I mean, I'm so amazed by that. I can't give you the tour of the studio right now, but when we're done recording, I will. This thing is a shrine to sport. Mostly baseball and hockey, a little bit of basketball. North America. I'm sure you spent some time in North America. The big four out here, and especially Canada, the big one is hockey. So there's not a ton of hockey in here, but my Toronto Maple Leafs are having a great season right now, and I'm hoping that we'll have some more shrinery exhibits hanging out. But that's so cool, and I mean, I got to imagine that there's a certain legacy that gets handed down to that. You have the jerseys at home, I imagine.
Yeah, growing up, I would have done. I think now I don't live at home anymore. I don't particularly, but I still have like get sent the photos every now and again. Like you always have a bit of banter about him scoring goals against certain teams or playing at certain places. But yeah, so it's often a case of, and we always talk about it as well, and always tell stories, and we always chat about his experiences and stuff, which helps me further down the line as well, which is massive to have as well.
That's a beautiful thing. I think that's very admirable too. Kind of the same line of work, and that's pretty admirable. And I got to imagine people probably talk to you in your line of work regarding your father as well too.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny sometimes going to certain clubs or being around the professional players if they were playing in the same kind of era, we start having a chat, and I say, oh, like probably played against my dad, or you played with my dad, and all of a sudden they're like, oh my god, like no way, like almost makes them feel really old.
Yeah.
But it's quite funny sometimes, and it almost gives me a bit more of a perspective on maybe what their experiences are, and a bit of common ground sometimes with people, with the pros, and with more senior people within the game as well.
I also have to believe that because your father went through it, you went through it as well too. You get a little bit more, maybe respect. Maybe respect's not the right word, but because your father went a certain way with it, you understand the insides of the game a little bit more. The maybe the business aspect of the game as well.
Yeah, and a bit like the politics of the game as well, a little bit.
Fair enough, yeah.
And understanding a bit more kind of the day to day, and how players kind of are seen, and how their relationships with other players, with managers, with other clubs and stuff like that, which I'm really, really lucky to have had a little bit of experience with through my dad, and which other people around me might not have. And I find it interesting when you talk to people who are in that environment, and then you almost find maybe comparisons. You might find, this is what I was told about this environment. This is a funny story I have. They might be able to share a little bit with me, and it's really, really interesting in that side of it. Definitely.
Awesome. I want to switch gears a little bit. Something that I noticed about your podcast that I really liked. I first of all, the way you present your podcast, it's very professional. And I got to say, for someone who's 30, 40 episodes in, you got a great polish on your show. I like the underlining music that you do, but the presentation that you do is very special. And the podcast I listened to today, it made me grin, because I was like, oh man, okay, Billy and I are going to get along really well. And the podcast was the soundtrack of your life. And I thought it was such a great concept. I'm going to steal it. I'm going to let you know. Fair warning. All royalties go to you. No problem. The great thing about making no money on a podcast is that you can promise money to people, but if there's nothing coming in, you can't give anything out. So I'm going to steal the idea at some point. I really thought it was really great. And you were going over some of the tunes. And as you're going through it now, I need to warn you, I have a small obsession with the UK and maybe English life. And it's because I grew up being a huge, huge Oasis fan, which we kind of touched on when I was trolling you on your live feed. We'll get into that. We'll get into that in a little bit. But I always grew up, and I obsessed about things to the point where I need to know all these details. And it's just who I am. So when the Gallagher brothers were rise to fame, I was starting to discover music. And then I obviously got thrown into that. I have a great relationship with my younger brother. And I kind of saw parallels in that. Noel being a little bit older, a little bit wiser, Liam being a little bit of a firecracker. I saw a lot of those similarities. So I just gravitated towards that. I watched a lot of documentaries about England at the time, Manchester at the time, kind of getting out of the throes of Thatcher and into Labour and Tony Blair, and a lot of the political side of it. And I just felt a lot of a connection to British music more than I did American music.
Yeah.
And you're talking about all these childhood songs are all American bands, all hip hop, all R&B. And I kind of thought to myself, I was like, well, that's kind of wild, isn't it? Like, kid from England, influenced by American music. I'm going to say North American music. And then myself being influenced by British music. I thought the parallels in that were kind of wild.
Yes. I think definitely growing up, for me, it's probably a little bit different now. Like for me now, UK music, especially like grime and UK rap and stuff, is massive now here. And it's very, very popular now, and people celebrate it more. Where I think growing up, it was more, I was heavily influenced by MTV, and spending the day in front of MTV watching music videos, and sitting in the car and listening to the radio, or like different, like the old CD, all the CDs playing in the car and stuff. But yeah, I think even back then, I don't think I got into even like bands like Oasis, or let's say Blur, for example. I know Oasis and Blur is a bit of a pair.
Yeah.
But
I thought you were going to say Arctic Monkeys. I was hoping you would.
I do. Oh, I love Arctic Monkeys.
I love the Arctic Monkeys.
I saw them at Reading Festival. They were unreal.
Oh,
but yeah,
I've seen them live twice here in Toronto. But yeah.
Yeah, they were quality, but that
Yeah.
sort of thing I didn't really get into until I was probably in my teenage years. I think when I was in, I guess secondary school or high school, and that's probably when I started to really kick into that sort of music. Because I'd never really experienced it before. I was more just heavily drawn into whatever it seemed like whatever was on MTV at the time, and then going back in now, like I love music now, and I'll go and listen to anything. And similar, I have to, if I really connect with someone, I have to explore every corner of them.
Yeah, I feel you.
And I find like now going back through, especially now with like UK music now is popping now. It's where it was always US was the pinnacle. Now you have UK artists are breaking through that and are being seen worldwide now, which is great.
Well, I got to imagine too, if you were into hip hop, I mean, British artists, you had maybe the Streets, Biz. Like I can't think of too many other guys that were really happening for the UK scene, especially if you're into hip hop.
Yeah, at the time, definitely the streets are brilliant.
Oh yeah, that first album is so good.
Oh my gosh!
Like you think you're fit, don't you know it? Like I don't get me started, please, because I'll embarrass myself. But I mean, I could see why the admiration for American hip hop was there. Let me ask you this: what do you know about Canada?
What do I know about Canada? I know core, not as much as I'd like to. It's a country I really want to go and see, and I want to go and explore. I mean, apart from Drake, The Weeknd, Bieber, Celine Dion,
right? Yeah,
and
those all count. Yeah, those are all ours.
And a little bit of Toronto Raptors. That's all I know really about Canada.
Okay, I'm just curious for a standpoint. I forgot a question. I actually wrote down a handful of questions that I want to ask you, but go figure. I forgot it upstairs, but I do remember some of them. I forgot to ask you this. When it came to your father, like you have a like really hot sister, right? That's what I picked up from your live feed. When she brings guys home, are they intimidated by your father because he played pro?
Cool. It's probably the most difficult question I've been asked in my podcasting career. Cool. I mean, yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think with my dad as well, as much as of his professional career as a person, he's very he knows what he wants. He knows what he knows what he believes. He stands up for what he believes in, and he doesn't take shit really. And I can't think of any examples really when a boyfriend or a partner has taken the piss, and he's had to be like, look, you know what, this isn't on. It's almost very much just been he almost has that sort of carries himself in such a way you almost see and just go, yeah, you know what, you don't want to take, you just don't take the piss because but I think he's touch wood, I think, for their sake. I think he's done all right so far.
Okay, so another thing I wanted to do that I thought would be fun, I've already done it once when, again, I might as well just tell the story. You do a live feed once a week where you just kind of field questions from whoever on Instagram. I saw this, and I just asking you like a whole bunch of like left field questions. It's kind of like what I like to do because I feel like when you do something like that, you kind of get like some real answers from people. And as a podcaster, you don't want the fluff, you want the meat, right? So I always feel like left field questions are always really good. And I was just throwing like random things out there. And to be honest, I was painting in my house. I was painting, and I just had you on the live feed, and my wife walks by. She's like, can he see you? I'm like, no. Like he's just doing his thing. I'm asking these like left field questions. And my wife just rolls her eyes. She's not interested in what I have to say about it. But I don't know. Was I out of line asking those questions? Like, how did you receive some of them were wacky. Some of them were pretty easy. But like, how did you receive some of that stuff?
No, like it's banter.
Right.
I don't. It's not that deep. Some of them are quite funny actually. I don't remember a lot of them off the top of my head now. But going through them, I was just like, it makes you kind of step and think. I think rather than, but it's quite funny to be fair.
You know, whenever I'm in that position where there's something like a live feed on Instagram, like we've all kind of watched and tuned in, and like I always think the interaction is really what it makes it enjoyable. The part where you see somebody, for example, like I'm doing the keto diet right now, and I watch this guy Keto Snacks with a Z at the end, and he's like a really zany character. Like he's one of those guys. He purposely pronounce things incorrectly to just to troll people into like saying, hey, it's tortilla, not a tortilla,
So
like
people
whatever.
can get in the comments and have a go at
You
it.
know,
Yeah, yeah.
and he does, but for me, that almost throws me for a loop, because it's like, okay, let's be real with this. Like, you know, I get it, you have an online persona, but anyways, I was asking you a whole bunch of random questions, and one of the questions I asked you was, can you tell me what a geezer is? Because with my obsession with UK lifestyle, geezer always comes up, and for me, I always thought that meant like an old dude who was just like wearing slacks and not pants, or a cardigan and not a sweater. Like, for me, it always felt like someone dated. And you kind of clarified, and you did a really good job clarifying it. I don't know if it's a great level of English education or just English language in general, but I thought that was like a really good thing. So I composed a list of questions to ask you to define for me, because I do watch Geordie Shore, which people, if you're not listening to, is the equivalent of Jersey Shore, but with blokes. There you go, from Newcastle. But here's my question. Like, in Canada, we have a term called Newfie, and Newfie would be the equivalent of what you guys call a Geordie, like a nickname of people where they come from. And a Newfie is like, you know, usually a fun-loving person, but a little sideways too. How would you describe a Geordie?
Cool, Geordie. They are. To be fair, I lived recently over the last 18 months with a girl who was from that area. Well, not specifically Geordie, but from Teesside, which is like the next place over. And Geordies are, especially the ones on Geordie Shore, they almost carry this obnoxious thing about them. They have this air of, I don't know if it's confidence or arrogance, but at the same time, they're quite soft-centered. From the ones I've met as well, some of them are brilliant, like hilarious. The accent is brilliant as well.
Mm-hmm.
But to describe a Geordie, yeah, I think it would be like almost an outer layer of like arrogance and bravado, but with a kind of all centered around like a kind of soft center around like with a lot of humor and a lot of sarcasm, which is, to be fair, a British. I'm not sure if it's a Canadian thing as well, just a sarcastic nature as well about them.
Mm-hmm. Isn't like the big thing like a lot of dry humor too? Isn't it like
100%.
I enjoy it, but sometimes I like, you can't read dry sarcasm. It just sounds negative, but in conversation it's great. Okay, so one of the phrases I had on this sheet of paper was taking the piss out of something. I don't know what the literal term is, but what does it mean? Like what does that slang mean?
So I think I've said it already so far in the conversation, but
that's what made me think about it.
So taking the piss is like, you can also say like taking the mick, taking the mickey. It's like, it's often just making fun of. And you can also say when someone is trying to, we also say like mug you off, make you look like an idiot.
Right, mugs on the list as well too, yeah.
So it's almost like, taking the piss can be if we're having a conversation and I'm just being a bit of an idiot or whatever, or you say something and I try and mimic you or whatever, that could be me taking the piss out of you.
Okay.
Or it could be, if like, it might be, people use it in all different ways, but it's often to mimic and to make a fool of, or to when people are like, I imagine like in school, someone says something, someone's straight on top of them, like having a go at them about something, and almost like I said about taking the mick and that doesn't explain it, but taking the mick and
It made sense when you're like, kind of making fun of somebody.
Something like that.
And then mugging people off is like making them look like an idiot in front of other people.
Yeah, mugging you off is making you look like an idiot.
Okay, what about what's a crack?
Crack. So crack is like laugh, like a giggle and like banter. So if someone has good crack, they have good banter.
Okay. I just texted my wife to bring me down that list, because I had probably 5 or 6. Okay, she just said, okay, she might do it or she might not. All right, if they pop into my head, swindle somebody.
Pardon?
Is it how? Like, what is it to swindle? Not swindle. Swine somebody. Not swirl somebody. Is that a thing?
Swirl somebody.
It's like get a drink thrown at you or something like that.
I don't think I've heard that.
Okay, I might be wrong on that one. I wrote it down because, anyways, whatever. And then, what is the obsession with kebabs? Is that like the street meat? You talked about it on your pod as well.
So basically, a kebab is the epitome of a night out, and that the trashy, greasy, fatty, meaty food going and get after a few drinks on a night out before you go home. Go and get a kebab with it's like basically just whatever lamb, horse, dog, cat meat, whatever it is, and with a salad with some chips, bit of sauce if you want it in a wrap. Just it does the job there. It's magical. That's like the street meat of choice, right? Like, you guys also have like hot dog vendors, or is that not like something that made it over the Atlantic? I think maybe in certain places, but I think you're more likely to see a kebab shop or a fish and chip shop than a hot dog vendor, for example.
Okay. And you spent some time in the States. Where and how long?
So I was in California for about 6 months when I was 18, and I was there doing what I do now, basically coaching soccer, like in holiday soccer camps, and then working with teams in the fall. And yeah, as an 18-year-old, it was basically a jolly up. It was basically just go in, coach for 3 hours a day, and then go and explore for the rest. It was quality.
I mean, you're in the right spot, right? California, the sun's always out. I love Cali. I've been there a handful of times. Whereabouts in California were you? Like South or NorCal?
So I mainly spent my time in the fall. I was in Huntington Beach.
Yeah.
So
God. Awesome.
I stayed there for 3 months. Yeah, it was brilliant. And then the other times I was inland LA, and then ventured a little bit out to SoCal before going into Orange County.
Oh my God, you hit some spots, my dude.
Oh, it was magic. Yeah, unreal.
And how does it translate for you? Like, you go. I mean, you have the illusion, I guess, of what Hollywood in California is. And how was that experience? Like, were you every day just loving your life, not wanting to come home, like losing the passport or something?
I've always said that I'd go back there tomorrow if I could.
Yeah.
And the surprising thing was going there, and like you see Hollywood on movies and on TV, and you think, wow, this place is going to be like magic. But then you go to Hollywood, and that's probably one of the roughest areas I've visited. It was like completely chalk and cheese to what we see everywhere else.
It's not glitz and glamour. Yeah, the Hollywood Live area is like there's they have 24-hour security because they have homeless people trying to sleep in lobbies and like sidewalks, because one side of the sidewalk is pristine, the other side looks like someone just was killed on it.
Yeah, it's mad. Yeah, it's like literally that 200 yard kind of stretch where the main kind of hub of like Hollywood Boulevard is like lit up and looks nice. You think, wow, this is cool, and then you go a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, a little bit across the road, and you're like, oh my God, this is like you're like checking corners. It's mad.
Yeah. I was always amazed by that. I've been lucky. I was in Hollywood Live for a hair show. Professionally, I'm a hairstylist, and we were there for a big hair conference, and just by chance they had the Emmys. The Emmys were across the street, and we were all having a drink outside the hotel, and people were walking by with Emmys, daytime Emmys, and I met the guy who does the makeup for SNL. He had just won an award, and I asked him to hold his Emmy. And I thought for sure he was going to say no. He's like, who's this guy? Like, I don't know. Like, he's bigger than I am. Is he going to just start running with my Emmy? And he's like, yeah, sure. He handed it right over like he had 10 of them at home and let me hold it. And, you know, it's true what they say. When you hold these awards, they are heavier than expected.
Yeah.
But Los Angeles, man, California, cool place.
Yeah, beautiful place. Love it.
Yeah. Okay. So we talked a little bit about the pod, talked a little bit about you. What other things kind of like get you going? Like, what is there to do right now in lockdown England?
I think at the minute it seems that we're still under the national lockdown kind of conditions and things. But
got my
list.
Got my
Happy
list.
days.
Thank you, honey. Yes.
But at the minute, I'm lucky enough now to be back at work full time, which is keeping me sane, I think. But there's a lot of people who are still. We have like a job retention scheme set up by the government, which basically pays 80% of your wage if you're not working. So a lot of people have been put on that, so they're sat at home, not doing an awful lot. You can't mix households. You can't meet outside either. I think you can meet in groups of like one, and all that, those kind of little restrictions. But the weather's getting a little bit nicer, so it's getting a little bit easier. But I think it's just the case of it still being in the dark. We're still being in the dark about when it's going to go back to normal, when things are going to be lifted, and that's what's making it a little bit difficult now that it's stretched on for the last year or so.
Yeah, we're in a very similar position. We just had we're just bracing ourselves for the third wave. We have thank you for the UK variant of the COVID virus. That was awesome.
You're welcome.
We're dealing with that too, but we're in the same position. 80% of your wage sounds great because the Canadian government is offering unemployment, which is about $2,000 a month, which for our household is like barely enough, and it makes it very difficult. My wife's working like day and night now just to keep us afloat. It makes me feel less of a man, and I'm sure like you understand like the struggle is real, and at least you're doing the physical thing. I'm not doing any of that stuff, and I'm wasting away. So good on you for at least staying active, and that's great that your government's doing that for you. Okay, yeah. Here we go. Got the list. Thank you, honey. I appreciate that. My lovely wife Brittany, who makes one appearance on the podcast a year, she hit her quota. Okay, so what's a crack? I asked you. Buzzing. Like I assume buzzing is like completely buzzing. I mean, I gotta imagine it's like a hype moment, that kind of stuff. When everything seems to be lining up.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. One I use a lot. To be fair though, I've used it for things for some reason with the English, is that words can be used, or words are used sometimes both good and bad. So, for example, buzzing can be, that's buzzing, like good news, or that's great, that's brilliant. I like using buzzing, but also I've used it, especially at home. Use it if, like, for example, you're eating something or someone does something that's a bit disgusting. Like, that's buzzing.
Oh,
but
okay.
Which doesn't make sense. Which probably don't a lot of people don't use, but that's something that's always been in my kind of vocab. But it's mainly buzzing. That's brilliant. That's great news. Well, that's good.
Yeah, it sounds like a good word. I feel like it'd be good. All right, now this one for me, like it's very self-explanatory, but I just don't know why the English use it every time they're trying to describe something, and then it's. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like all the time. Like don't get me wrong. Like Oasis has a song called "Do You Know What I Mean?" It's a 7-minute anthem, but like every time I listen to an interview, especially with Liam Gallagher, he starts going on and he's like, "Yeah, do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean?" Like, yeah, dude, I know what you mean. Just finish the sentence, please. But why is that so common? I mean, maybe it's the English version of R.A., but I don't know.
I think it's like a bit of a filler. I think I have a lot that I'm, especially since doing the podcast, I'm really conscious of. Like, for example, saying like or kind of, or I say, does that make sense? Mainly from my kind of coaching teaching background. Always ask a question, go, does that make sense? And they go, oh yeah, or no. But like people talking and go, like, or do you know what I mean? Or you get me is another one now. But it just seems just like, for some reason, like British seem to be want to check in, make sure everything makes sense. Make sure we
okay. We're just checking in.
Yeah, just going. Are you still with me?
Yeah. Okay. Now this one I know a little bit, but I want a better definition of, and it comes from my wife and I are currently into Love Island, which is another trashy English reality show. But I have to admit, it is very entertaining. Tell me, Mr. Billy, what is a slag?
Oh, here we go. The beloved slag. So basically, a slag is a slut or a whore, but it's almost one of those words that you use it to insult anyone. It doesn't have to be. It can be man or woman. Someone who's
anybody can be a slag, and
you could be shut up, you slag, and it can just be so. It can just kill an argument. You can't come back often from it. But yeah.
So I mean, I know that I'm not going to say it in respect to anybody who might be listening, but I know in English language, the C word is pretty common, but over on this side of the Atlantic, it's kind of like the bookend. So maybe that's the, like, because you guys overuse the C word, maybe is slag like the replacement there?
The C word, I've got a group chat with one of the names has got that in it. But slag's a bit more, it's used a lot, it's used just quite freely, it seems like. I think if you're calling someone it with a bit of bitterness behind it, a bit of venom behind it, then it can be like a whoa, like it's a bit strong.
Right.
But sometimes people between mates and stuff will just throw it out, and it just seems just like this. It's just another word.
I think when you're with the boys or with the mates, you can use any word to describe some stupidity that might be happening, and it's okay. It's in that public form that it tends to have more.
And kind of context, if you're having an argument with someone or a partner or a girl or something, and you call them, you go, "Oh, you slag" or whatever, it can often set it a little bit over the edge, and that's where things can get.
You can say the C word. I have a hard, like, I don't want to say it. You can say it because I think for you guys it's pretty natural, right? It's like your word.
Yeah, I think yes, it's often it's used in a lot of contexts. To be fair, I don't really often use it often myself. I think depends on the situation. I don't ever call it in anger. It'll often be like, for example, am I allowed? For example, like
do it.
Like for example, like describing someone, he's a bit of a funny cunt or something like that. Yeah. That's like I'm like, yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, my last one is waffle. Like the context is like he's such a waffle, or what a waffle.
That describes me and the podcast. So waffle can be someone talking a lot about nothing.
Okay.
So like he talks a lot of waffle. He waffles on.
Oh, okay. No, so not like the food.
No, not like the food. No. So it's it could be someone who talks a lot of nothing. So just if they talking, they're waffling on, or they are a waffler, if that makes sense.
Oh, I like that. Actually, Waffler. I love their first album. You know, it was great. We might have to start a podcast just called The Waffles, because I think you and I would probably have a good role going on with that. That's it. That's it for English slang for now. If one pops up, or if you say something, I might have to ask for the definition. I like I said before, I have a lot of admiration for English culture. I used to have a. This is back in the early 2000s when it was okay to do this, but I had this badass jean jacket when I was in hair school. and on the back a Union Jack, of course. I'm not English by any means. Like my ancestry is Italian and Spanish, so it's not like that big of a deal for me. I don't know why. I think it's because in Canada we have a lot of English influence. The Queen's on our money, you know. The Ontario flag has a Union Jack on it. Not only that, the Union Jack probably the coolest flag out there. So I think it's just like one of those things, one of those attractions for me.
Yeah, I think for me, for example, I don't think I've ever owned, off the top of my head, a clothing with the Union Jack on it. I think you've got a lot of people who can be quite patriotic, but it almost seems now, I think my kind of generation, it doesn't seem to be that many people who are that patriotic anymore. So I think you might have like the Spice Girls jean jacket with the Union Jack on the back.
Union Jack dress.
Yeah, it just doesn't happen anymore, I don't think. But unless it's like England are playing in the World Cup, or there's whatever like sporting event going on. Other than that, you don't really see
London had the Olympics a couple of years ago. I mean, it was pretty dominant then.
That's when it was. Yeah, that was brilliant.
That was Canada had the very similar in 2010. They had the Olympics in Vancouver, and patriotism was at its all-time high at that point too. It's wild. The late 90s boom of British music. I mean, you had the Battle of Blur and Oasis, of course, Pulp, Alaska, like all those other great Britpop bands. But then you also had all of the super poppy stuff, like the Spice Girls come out, All Saints, Five, like all Robbie Williams, like all these great British artists that started to come out and emerge at the same time. So I could see why a lot of that was in a big influx towards to me, who was into all that stuff. I bought all these issues. So your music magazine and NME magazine.
NME,
yeah. So here, I think it's like £5 or £6 when you buy it in the UK. In Canada, it's like $12 to buy that magazine. Yeah, it's import pricing, and of course, like I'm a music collector too, so I have vinyl. Like a UK import, I have none, because I have maybe one actually. but it's just so expensive to get the imports, and they're the same thing. There's a little graphic that's a little bit different, and the value of that is just tenfold. It's crazy. So I used to buy those magazines. If Liam or Noel were on the cover, I used to buy them. I recently found them. It's like, oh my God, like these magazines are 20, 25 years old. I don't know why I kept it. I know why I kept it, because the value for me was there to buy it. But anyways, whatever, I digress. Okay, so something we do on the Not After 30 podcast, which I always have a lot of fun, is we play this game called Bad Choices. And Bad Choices is basically the drinking game Have You Ever? Have you played that game?
Yeah, that. Well, like Never Have I Ever or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I have a lot of fun with it. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions. We're kind of hitting like our 40-minute mark, which is usually where I find most people dip out of the podcast. So I'll ask you a handful of bad choices questions, and then we'll sign off. We can spit a little bit more if we want. Okay, ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. Wow, this is starting off great. For $200, I'm going to say $200 Canadian, which is like 125 pounds. Would you tell a mother that their baby was ugly?
Oh,
I mean, depends on how much you want. $200 Canadian.
That's the thing. I see a lot on Instagram and a lot on social media when people post their babies, and you're like, that's an ugly baby. That's an ugly baby. But it'll break a woman's heart to hear that their baby is ugly.
$200
for 200 Canadian dollars. Yeah, for 200 Canadian dollars, I don't think I could do it. I think that was way too heavy on my conscience.
I have to agree with you. I think, and especially being on the other side, I have two small kids. I couldn't imagine someone being like, "Yeah, your kid's not that good looking." Like, because my kids are really good looking. So, anyways, okay. Next question, we take it up a bit. Now, this kind of I joked around when I was trolling you when we were doing the live feed. You know, like if you came to Canada with your accent, you would just kill. You'd kill the scene. You would have any girl at the bar or the pub, whatever. Oh, here's a question. Is there a difference between an English and an Irish pub? Is that the same difference?
It's the same thing, basically. Yeah.
Irish pub just probably dirtier, maybe smells like potatoes.
Yeah, and Guinness.
Yeah, Guinness, fair enough. A lot of spilled Guinness. Okay. Have you ever had sex with a bartender?
No, I haven't.
Same.
No, I haven't.
Okay. We're getting really deep with this, man. I picked the wrong questions. I must have picked from the wrong side of the deck. Have you ever had a friend with benefits?
Yeah, I have.
Okay. This one's just like a draw two cards. Okay. That's a drink, by the way. All right. So the next one was like a draw two cards. So I'm just going to draw another one. Oh, wow. Has your friendliness ever been misinterpreted as flirting?
Yeah, I'm a very friendly person, and I think often it can be seen as flirty. I don't know if you've thought that so far, but
I was getting a little bit, but I also have to imagine if you're dealing with kids, you know, there's always the mom of the kid. You know, if you're just trying to be friendly, you know, I can imagine that it puts you in a weird predicament.
Yeah, I think sometimes you play to the audience a little bit as well. And with your group, you almost, depending on who's watching, you almost play to. You find yourself looking around, and you think, cool, sweet, and then you almost play to the crowd a little bit, which can definitely be, especially if like, your kid's brilliant, your kid's amazing.
You know what? I think you're nailing it. You know what? I'm gonna drink in your honor for that one, because I think that's the right answer. All right, last question. I said the last one was wrong, but this one definitely the last one. Would you never have sex again in your life for $3 million? And because I'm asking the question, it's 3 million Canadian, not 3 million pounds. So again, probably like 125 million.
What, for 125 million pounds?
Pounds.
Oh,
my conversion might be off a little bit, but I'm pretty sure I nailed it. I bought enough.
Cool. I mean, sex is good though. It's very good.
And see, and you're 24, like you're in your fucking prime, right? So, so it's a little bit different. Like I'm 38, you know, I still got good years ahead of me, but I'm just saying, 24. I don't know if you want to give it up that early.
I don't think I do.
Good call.
I don't think I do.
Now here's the flip side of that question. Do you think you can have $3 million worth of sex in your lifetime?
No way.
No way. No way,
No
right?
way.
So then, like maybe
like,
not. Yeah.
Cool. I think I have to. Or you know what? I'm gonna go with the money. I'm
Wow.
gonna go with the money.
Bravo. I'm impressed.
And I'm gonna drink to hide the tears as well.
See, well, here's the follow-up question to that is like, A, does all sex count, or are we just talking penetration sex? Or is it like, I don't know, can you still be cheeky? Like, does everything get caught off for $3 million? I don't know. It's a very...
What's the boundary? Where does it stop?
I'm going to imagine it's like the same as like cheating rules. Like, is a blowjob cheating? Yes, it's sex. It's still sex, right?
Yeah.
Are you ejaculating and it's still sex? So I think then yes, it all counts. Like, I think the most you can do is have a hug, but you can't hug for more than 3 seconds. And if you're kissing someone on the cheek, it has to be cheek on cheek and not lip on cheek. I think those are the rules. I'm gonna imagine that. Okay, my dude, I want to thank you for your time. I know it's so early in the morning, and like we're 45 minutes into this thing, and I appreciate your time. I just want to compliment you on your podcast once again. And this isn't a shill. This isn't just to like say, hey, go check out Not Another Podcast. The fact is, for someone who's as young as you are, you present a very good product, and you're not afraid to show who you are. And I think a lot of people are afraid to do that, especially in the way that the world is with, modified pictures on Instagram and just showing people what they want to see. I think you present a really real product, and I admire you for doing that. I think it's a very good job. And I think you should stick with this because I think you're good at it.
Thanks,
as
man.
well.
Appreciate it.
As well, as someone who was also a very big wrestling fan, I appreciate the fact that you did not hide from that because, like we got to stick together. And you're right, CM Punk, cult of personality, incredible tune. Just backtrack into the soundtrack of your life. I thought it was a great concept. I think that's episode 5, give or take.
Yeah, so I did that from that episode, I think 8 up to like 16, 17, something like that. It's like I did a few of them with different people, but I think my one was the 16th one.
Okay.
I think.
I can't remember. I could probably just look it up, but I thought it was very insightful, and I enjoyed it a lot. And I would actually encourage people to start with episode 1, even like 30 episodes. I mean, the first couple episodes are only 15, 20 minutes long. I would encourage people, if you like what Billy has to say, go check out his podcast. You won't be disappointed. And I think you're doing a great job. And I want you to know that from one podcaster to another, keep it up. You're doing a great job.
Cheers, man. Just appreciate it. Thank you for the kind words.
Yes, no problem. We're going to sign off right now. Billy, I want to chat with you for a couple more minutes if that's possible afterwards.
Yeah.
So if you guys are listening to this on the Not Another Podcast, this is the Not After 30 podcast, similar but different. You can find us on all podcatchers. You can find Billy and the Not Another Podcast on all podcatchers, as well as Instagram. Don't forget, Not Another Podcast _. Got to get that plug in there. And check out Billy and what he does, because I think he's doing a great job. Thank you, as always, for tuning in, checking us out. No, that's not right. Hold on. What's my sign off again? Thank you for downloading, tuning in, and checking us out. This is the Not After 30 Podcast.